What?
We're talking about intelligence today. Y'all know what that is?
What did you say?
When's the IQ test?
Today. Turn to page 228. We're going to take a little IQ test in a few minutes. Talk about what IQ means and intelligence is and so forth.
We're taking it online one?
Well, trust me.
Yes, it is online.
Bro, I apologize.
Yeah,
I'm down really quick and grab it.
Yep.
Thank you.
How my eyes?
Just as a general rule for everyone, if you come to psychology class, bring your psychology book. Alrighty, let's see, psychology.
What page?
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
What's that from?
Anchorman.
That's Anchorman.
Holy, you need to plan for your birthday.
What?
Okay, what is intelligence?
Knowledge.
Is it just knowledge? Knowledge definitely goes into it. Here is the scientific definition of intelligence. We're on page 228, by the way. An inferred characteristic of an individual, usually defined as the ability to profit from experience, acquire knowledge, think abstractly, act purposefully, or adapt to changes in the environment. That's intelligence. You can see it covers a wide variety of things. And knowledge is part of it. But just because you have a lot of knowledge, you may not be intelligent. You know a lot. There's some people who are real book smart, but they don't have any common sense. So what percent? Some people with common sense that don't know much. And somebody your age definitely doesn't know as much as somebody my age, just because I've lived longer. And I've read more things and seen more things and memorized more things and so forth. But does that mean you're not as intelligent as me? A lot of you would beat me on an IQ test. But what does that mean? Well, I say a lot. I mean one, maybe. But anyway, there's something that the scientific community calls it the G factor, general intellectual ability, assumed by many theorists to underlie specific mental abilities and talents. And the IQ test is something that was devised to try and measure this G factor, this underlying facet of the brain that contributes to intelligence. And the first type of intelligence test that was out there, they hired a guy named Alfred Binet. He's credited with inventing the IQ test. And they wanted to determine a child's mental age. MA means mental age. Because back in the old days, you would enter school not all at the same age. Nowadays, when you're 4, you go to kindergarten. When you're 5, you go to first grade and so forth. But back then, some people didn't start school till they were 12 years old. And so if you start school when you're 12 years old, what grade do you put the kid in? Put him in kindergarten, you put him in first grade, you put him in second grade. So what they asked this guy to do, Binet, is they asked him to devise a test to figure out where to put kids into school when they start. And it was called the Binet Intelligence Test, and now it's called the Stanford Binet Intelligence Test. And what they found is that performance on an IQ test can be graphed and is distributed in what we call a bell curve. And yes, I'm incredible at drawing bell curves, I know. You don't have to get all crazy about it. Where score is on the side here. Wait, no, that's not right. Score is on the bottom here. This is a low score. This is a high score. And this is average in the middle. Average. And this is the number of test takers on the side. So, for instance, if you give a test to give one of these IQ tests to 10,000 people, some are going to score low, some are going to score high, but most will be somewhere in the middle. And they set the intelligence test where the average is 100. So if you score 100, you're of average intelligence, they say. And it goes all the way down. It can get as low as 0, but it doesn't. I mean, usually you don't see anyone lower than about 60 or so. That's low. And somewhere around 70 or so is considered mentally retarded when you're scoring that low on these intelligence tests. But of course, a lot of people don't put a whole lot of stock in these intelligence tests, because it's only measuring, as you'll see when you take it, it only measures a certain facet of intelligence. It doesn't take into account everything. I mean, you'll see in the test you have to manipulate things in your head, and you have to remember things, and but they aren't giving you like math problems or something like that. They aren't telling you to take a sentence and tell me what's the noun and the verb. They aren't asking you crystallized intelligence, stuff that you've learned over a period of time. They're asking you to kind of work things around in your head. And so it's really measuring this aspect of intelligence, and not everybody agrees that that's the best way to measure intelligence. But the highest IQ, somewhere around 135, I think is the number that's commonly accepted. 135 or better is genius. And, well, here they show the actual curve. 68% of people, 2/3 of people, are between 85 and 115. 95% of people are between 70 and 130. And only a very small percentage of people are above 130 and below 70. You can see that 2% are below 70 and above 130. The highest recorded IQ I read in a magazine somewhere was like 185. And it's expected that there are only like 4 people in the world out of 6 billion who would score that high. Statistically expected that there are about 4 people. And they interviewed on this video one of the guys. He was a bouncer at a bar. And he had written a theory of how the universe came into existence. And they're like, "Why are you a bouncer at a bar?" And he goes, "This is what I like to do." Real big guy, muscular guy. You would have never met. He was one of the 4 smartest persons in the world. Stephen Hawking is said to have an IQ like way up there, 170, 180 or something. It's not an exact scale, you know. It's not if you have a 200 IQ, you're not twice as smart as somebody with a 100 IQ. It doesn't work like that. It's more of a logarithmic scale. Getting 10 points higher there's a lot less people at 10 points higher IQ. Now we're going to take a little IQ test here, and it's an online IQ test. And here's the thing about online tests. They're usually made to go pretty quick, because people don't like to sit there doing something for a long time when they're on the internet. They're all sponsored by a website who gets more money if you visit the site more. So they're very inclined to give you a higher score than you would actually get. Okay? So you're probably going to get a higher score, I would think, than what your IQ actually is when you take this. But they do show you the questions, what the questions are like on a real IQ test. If you want to take a real IQ test, there's a society, have you ever heard of it? It's called Mensa. You ever heard of that? Mensa is the High IQ Society. And if you want to be a member of Mensa, you got to go and sit down when they're watching you and take an IQ test. And you got to score 135 or greater on it, whatever the number is, 140 or something like that. And then you can be a member of their group. And they have these Mensa meetings, and you know that everybody in the group is real smart. And so they just sit around and have discussions and things like that. They don't want anybody unintelligent in their ranks. So anyway, the IQ test is again, there's a lot of people that have problems with it, and I want you to read about some of the problems with it in the reading tonight. The reading tonight takes you through all the way through page 234, and they talk about things with the intelligent test. Like, for instance, it's not fair for cultures. You know, if you put a problem about cars or something, cars are traveling along the road at this fast and another one's coming at this fast. Well, there are some cultures that don't have many cars in them, so they're not going to know what you're talking about. So those people would say that this test is culturally biased. You know, how are you going to test an African bushman for his intelligence when you're testing him about cars and skateboards and buildings and things like that? Or even having them move around objects in their head that are shaped like objects that we would normally see and not them. Would you say that all of us are smarter than the African bushman? That African bushman can probably take a track and look at it and tell you what kind of animals were there, how many of them, how long ago they walked, and what the weather was like for the past 7 days. And you could never do that. And so there's surely African bushmen that are just as intelligent as you or I, even more so, but they just haven't had the schooling and the education. So, you know, what is intelligence? It's hard to say. So that's what I want you to read about tonight, how, you know, what they offer about intelligence. So here's what we're going to do. The elevator's broken, so I was trying to get the cart up here with the computers, and I couldn't. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have some of you go into the physics lab, and some of you go downstairs and get a computer, and we'll draw for that. But I want to show you where to find the IQ test. I have it written down here. I thought I had it written down. Hold on. It's called Test Cafe. Let me just see what.
Go ahead. Real IQ test where you guys sit down and it costs a lot of money to.
Yeah, usually it does cost money.
That's where you get yeah, 49.
not loading now.
Yeah, stay doing fixing it.
How long is that just supposed to take? 10 minutes?
It's like 50, yeah, it's like 10 minutes. 3, online.
This one costs money, I think.
Thank you for noticing.
You must work mentally. Do not use pencil or paper during the test. Be ready to determine whether the statements that follow are true or false. I've seen this one before. You can do this one. You will have to click either a true or false button to indicate your response. If you average more than 20 seconds to respond to each of the questions, your IQ score will be lower. So you go to IQtest.com. www.iqtest.com.
Wait, don't.
38 questions.
It's like true.
Okay.